Hello, fellow mushroom people! Today we're doing the Battle of the Books, and let me just say that this tournament has been more like a Regionalliga than a Bundesliga. And for all those out there who are not from Germany, let me just say that those were not the greatest books that I've ever read. So the first match that has been announced was between Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez and Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. So let me just tell you what those books were about. So Woven in Moonlight is about Ximena. She is the decoy Contessa, the stand-in for the last remaining Illustrian royal. Her people lost everything when the usurper Atok used an ancient relic to summon ghosts and drive the Illustrians from La Sirat. Now Ximena's motivated by her insatiable thirst for revenge and her rare ability to spin thread from moonlight. When Atok demands the real Contessa's hand in marriage, it's Ximena's duty to go in her stead. She relishes the chance, as Illustrian spies have reported that Atok's no longer carrying his deadly relic. If Ximena can find it, she can return the true aristocrata to their rightful place. She hunts for the relic using her weaving ability to hide messengers and tapestries for the resistance. But when a masked vigilante, a warm-hearted princessa, and a thoughtful healer challenge Ximena, her mission becomes more complicated. There could be a way to overthrow the usurper without starting another war, but only if Ximena turns her back on revenge and her Contessa. So yeah, this blurb sounds totally interesting. I haven't read it before, so before reading the book, so this was actually the first time reading the blurb, and from that alone, this sounds like it would be an awesome book, right? I did enjoy it. So I read this quite fast, I think, because it was a very easy read and it was very action-packed. So there were a lot of things going on in this book. There was a lot happening. I thought the magic would be so that she could weave moonlight. So that was very interesting. I think it got more interesting later on. And then there was this vigilante and they had this kind of weird love story, maybe not. And so throughout the whole book, there was always the question, who is this vigilante? And when it was revealed later on who it was, and I think this was supposed to be such a shock for everyone, maybe, I was like, yeah, okay, I think it was quite obvious. I mean, there were only like 2 people who could have been the vigilante, maybe 3, but so it wasn't that big of a mystery. Also, the love story, I didn't really care for the love story, so it wasn't really that well done. Also, the protagonist, she was quite dumb at times. Like in the beginning, she was very aggressive, and so she, like the book said, she went to this other place where she didn't belong and everyone was kind of hostile, or that's what she thought. And she was so narrow-minded, she didn't let anyone just talk to her about other things. She was just for her mission. I mean, okay, I guess that was the point for her being there, but she was very unfriendly. And I always think that even if you're in a hostile place, being friendly probably helps more than being aggressive towards everybody. But yeah, so what did I think of this book? Like I said, I enjoyed it very much. So I enjoyed it. It was a quick read. And to be honest, so that the sequel's already out. And I might want to pick it up, even though I did not like that book that much. So it would probably be a 3-star book for me. Because the things that I was hoping for, like exploring this South American inspired culture, that didn't happen. So it was more focusing on this kind of enclosed location. So most of the time we spent in this palace, and I was a bit disappointed that we didn't venture through this forest, for example, that's on the cover maybe. So That was kind of a letdown, but the sequel is going to take place in the jungle, and that's interesting. And the blurb for the sequel sounds very interesting. So even though I did not love this book, I might pick up the sequel just because it sounds way better. Way more interesting. So this doesn't sound as bad either. So whatever. Yeah, maybe. So I consider picking up the sequel. But yeah, so these are my thoughts on Woven in Moonlight. So let's just take a quick look at Spin the Dawn, right? A gifted tailor in disguise, 3 legendary dresses, the competition of a lifetime. On the fringes of the Great Spice Road, Maya Tamarine works as a seamstress in the shop of her father, once a tailor of renown. She dreams of becoming the greatest tailor in the land, but as a girl, the best she can hope for is to marry well. When a royal messenger summons her ailing father to court, Maya poses as his son and travels to the summer palace in his place. She knows her life is forfeit if her secret is discovered, but she'll take that risk to save her family from ruin and achieve her dream of becoming the imperial tailor. There's just one catch. Maya is one of the 12 tailors vying for the job. The competition is cutthroat, and Maya's job is further complicated by the unwelcome attention of the court enchanter Edan, who seems to see straight through her disguise. But nothing could have prepared her for the final challenge, to sew 3 gowns so dangerously beautiful it will take a quest to the ends of the earth to complete them. So this is the first in a duology, and let me just say I will pick up the second book. Not right away, but at one point I will, because I really did enjoy this book. Like the book said, the first half is more about this contest, the swing contest, and the second half is more about the travels that she's going on. And I did like both parts, so I think it was a great story. I really like Maya as a main character because she was very headstrong and she knew what she wanted. So like going to this court and posing as her brother and doing stuff. So I really liked her because she wasn't that aggressive and evil. It's just, just a very likable protagonist. There's also a love story in this book, and let me just say I didn't really care for the love story again. Mostly because the person she falls in love with, it's a guy, so he is way older than her, and he is way higher in status. So I don't really like those love stories where the girl is just falling for this super successful, rich, old man who's so awesome. And it wasn't that bad in the book. So once the love story got going and they got closer to each other, I thought it was okay. It was actually very well written and it wasn't that weird, but I just like those lovers to be equal in the love stories, and this it was that he was way more well versed in the world, and he was way more experienced, and he was just telling her what to do on this journey to accomplish what she was going for. So I did not like that aspect, but the love story itself was fine. I also liked that there was a lot of magic going on, or it was implied that there was a lot of magic in the world. Like I said, I'm really excited to see where the sequel goes, because in the end there's kind of a cliffhanger. It's not really that dramatic, but I'm interested to see where the story goes and how this duology will end. So, between those two books, which one? So, I think it was an easy pick for me, because this one was too YA for my taste, and this had a better feeling for me. So in this case, Spin the Dawn takes the win for the first round in the first semi-final, because I just thought that overall it was more imaginative and just more unique in most ways. And like I said, I will pick up the sequel for that one, and for that I want to as well, but not that much. So it's just that the story, I liked it way better. And that's why this is advancing to the finals, even though this wasn't the best book that I've read either. So, but still, Spin the Dawn wins the first round. Okay, so for the second round, we have Ruinsong by Julia Ember and Descendant of the Crane by Joan. Okay, I'm a bit sad to say that this round was worse than the first one. So this match was between even weaker contestants. So let me just tell you what Ruinsong is about. So, revolution or silence. In a world where magic is sung, a powerful mage named Cadence is forced to use her talents to torture her country's disgraced nobility at her ruthless queen's bidding. But when Cadence is reunited with her childhood friend, a noblewoman with ties to the underground rebellion, she must make a choice. Take a stand to free her country from a tyrant, or follow in the queen's footsteps and become a monster herself. In this dark and lush LGBTQ+ romantic fantasy, two young women from rival factions must work together to reunite their country as they wrestle with their feelings for each other. Again, that sounds great and very interesting. And I talked about this in my middle of March wrap-up, where I said that I've read, I think, 50 pages. Bell. Whoop! Sorry for that. Got the delivery. So, where was I? So, yeah, I said like I read the first 50 pages in this book, and they were quite interesting because Cadence was giving this performance, hurting people and then healing them, and it was quite dark. And I thought, oh, this is a good start. This is interesting, so I want to read this. But then things happened, and so this book feels like there is a lot going on in this country. So there's this super evil queen who likes to torture noble people. And then you have Cadence, who's the singer. And the blurb says that she has to decide if she wants to follow the footsteps, queen's footsteps queens, and become a monster herself or just choose love. And at no point in this book she considers like being the next evil queen. I mean, she does what the queen asks or demands of her just for her own protection and just surviving. But she's never like, oh yeah, so maybe living this life is good. Maybe I want to be the next queen and torture people. So there's never this conflict that is hinted at in the beginning. She's never like, yeah, I want to be the queen, so like the queen. Okay, so let me just talk about the nobility in this book real quick. The queen herself, she isn't a noblewoman. She overthrew the former queen and took the throne for herself because she thought that the queen was oppressing the regular people in this country. And therefore she kind of... It's really weird and it doesn't make a lot of sense because the noble people from those older times, they're still around and they still have a lot of money and they still exist and they have to attend those performances where the singer kind of hurts and tortures them, I think once a year, and otherwise they are kind of just living their lives. They're not really allowed to attend hospitals, but it's just so... Why not kill all the noble people if you hate them and just have them around? They don't do anything. So, and they have money. So it is said that Remy, so the childhood friend, the noblewoman, she lives in a very big house and it's a very nice house. And other than going to those torture events, her life doesn't seem to be that bad. And so this world doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also the love story. So in the other two books I said I didn't care for the love story. In this book I think the love story wasn't very well done. Because Remy sees Cadence performing at this event and she's like, oh, I hate her now, which is totally understandable because she's obviously working for the queen. But she also sees that Cadence herself doesn't really want to do this performance and she's kind of forced to do it. But then we have this back and forth between, oh, is she a monster? She must have told the queen that I was doing illegal stuff, and it's just not well done. So I didn't really care for all that stuff going on because it wasn't that well written, and the inner turmoil of those two characters, they never really came across. So for me, that love story, it wasn't that emotional at all, and also it wasn't resolved very well. Yeah. Also, so there's a revolution going on in this book, and those two characters, they kind of end up joining the revolution, but it's just they stumble into this plot, and they are never the driving force of propelling this revolution forward, and they just don't do anything. They just exist, kind of have the hots for each other, but never really, and it's just not well done. And it really bugged me because I wanted to like this because the cover is great and the premise itself is interesting. But I think to do this properly, the book would have needed a lot more pages, and so the writings are really big, and it's only like 360 pages long, and yeah, I think the book wants to do more, but it doesn't get there because it's not that well written, and that was really disappointing. Yeah, and it's still so pretty. But yeah, so this wasn't great. Now let me get to Descendant of the Crane by Joan. Hey, so tyrants cut out hearts, rulers sacrifice their own. Princess Hesina of Yan has always been eager to shirk the responsibilities of the crown, but when her beloved father is murdered, she's thrust into power, suddenly the queen of an unstable kingdom. Determined to find her father's killer, Hesina does something desperate. She enlists the aid of a soothsayer. In Yan, magic was outlawed centuries ago. This is a treasonous act, punishable by death. Using the information illicitly provided by the sooth, and uncertain if she can trust even her family, Hesina turns to Akira, a brilliant investigator who's also a convicted criminal with secrets of his own. With the future of her kingdom at stake, can Hesina find justice for her father, or will the cost be too high? So let me just start by saying I DNF'd this. So I'm very sorry. I really wanted to finish it, and I think I read like half of the book. But I found myself, so I was asking myself, do you want to finish this? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't care for this book, unfortunately. So I think the setting and the premise were really interesting. We also, in the beginning, we get a court scene where there are those... so they are presenting evidence for this case of her father's murder. But it was all not very well explained, and I think that goes for most of the things in the book, that there's also a lot of stuff happening. So there's her father's murder, and she has like 20 million brothers because, I don't know, the king was sleeping around kind of. And there's also a border dispute going on and a war almost, and so I wish it would have just focused on her father's death. I think that would have been better. And like I said, I can't talk for the second half of the book because in general this is a very interesting concept, and I really hope that this would be good. But I think it's hard to explain, but I just didn't want to keep on reading because none of the characters were that interesting. The love story that's probably going to happen at some point in the book wasn't that interesting, and there was just stuff happening, and I did not feel like reading this book, and that's why I DNF'd it. Even though the cover's beautiful. I just couldn't do it. I just felt like, no, if I keep going now, I won't be happy. I won't just I won't read this out of enjoyment, but because I feel like I have this obligation to do this Battle of the Books right, and that for me wasn't enough motivation to keep on going. So in this round, Ruinsong wins by default, even though it wasn't great as well. And now the final round. Can you guess which book won the Battle of the Books tournament in March? Yeah, you can. You're right, it's Spin the Dawn. So out of all those 4 books, I enjoyed Spin the Dawn the most. I thought it had a very good and interesting story. I am excited to read the sequel at one point, and I really liked most of the things that were going on in this book. And unfortunately, the other 3 were not as great. But like I said, this wasn't the best book I've ever read either. So, yeah. And I'm very proud that I read almost all of those YA fantasy novels in the months of March. I don't know, do you agree with this win? Do you agree with me, the DNFing Descendant of the Crane, or with what I said about the other books? So just leave a comment and tell me, and let's put a crown on this book. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video with me talking about the books I read, and see you again soon.